Hello, my name is Steuerwald, and I am an undergraduate student at the Iowa Pork Industry Center. Today I will be discussing the importance of selecting for correct leg conformation in replacement gilts. I will discuss the importance of gilt structure and body weight, the optimal joint angle of the three main feet and leg joints, including the pastern, the knee, and the hock, common leg abnormalities to avoid when selecting gilts, and how you as a producer can make your gilt selection process easier. To begin, I will discuss the importance of overall body conformation when selecting a replacement gilt. A gilt's conformation consists of her overall body structure, proportions, and how her limbs tie into her body. A gilt's overall build can greatly impact how long she stays in the breeding herd, therefore impacting her productive lifespan. The structure of the feet and legs provides the foundation for any animal, and it is especially important when selecting for gilts as they will put a lot of pressure and strain on their feet and legs during their time in the breeding herd. The ideal gilt should be square in her structure with legs that are well set underneath her, a good width of body, correct joint angles, and she should be free from feet and leg abnormalities. The other factor to consider along with body conformation is body weight, or the overall weight of the gilt. Body weight is important to consider in conjunction with conformation. Gilts should be bred at 300 to 350 pounds for their first breeding. Gilts that are underweight when bred typically produce fewer piglets compared to gilts at optimal weight. On the other end of the spectrum, gilts that are overweight when bred tend to have an increased risk of farrowing difficulty. This is where correct body structure can tie into body weight in gilts. Overall, a more optimally conformed gilt should have an easier time reaching that target weight range at first breeding and should be better set up to sustain and support that weight in the long term. Quality of a gilt's feet and leg structure can be vital to your sow herd's health. Structural issues with the feet and legs are the second most common reason for a sow to be culled after her first few parities in the sow herd. With most farms not seeing a profit from a sow until parity 3 or 4, it is no doubt an important factor in the longevity of a gilt. The three main joints of structural importance that we will discuss here today include the pastern, the knee, and the hock. Each of these joints have an impact on how a gilt will hold up over time to the bodily stresses of the sow herd. The pastern, and more specifically the angle of the pastern, is arguably the most important joint of the three joints we will discuss here. The optimal angle of the pastern on all four legs is 45 degrees from the ground. The closer this angle is to the 45-degree threshold, the less likely you are to see lameness and joint soreness. Research has shown that over time, as a sow ages, her pastern angle will gradually decrease as her joints weaken and break down over time. This breakdown is what can cause a lot of lameness and joint soreness issues. Therefore, selecting for optimal pastern angle from the start can help you improve the longevity of your gilts in the breeding herd. The angle of the knee and the hock is also very important in the overall structure of a gilt, and they have similar selection criteria. The knee, or the main joint of the front leg, should be set squarely under the shoulder and should be relatively straight. If you were to draw a line from the shoulder down to the knee joint, that line should be relatively straight. Research has shown that at 100 days of age, if you select for gilts that have a higher knee angle at this age, the longer those gilts will stay in the herd. Therefore, the higher joint angle at this age typically indicates a more optimal joint angle over time. The image on the left and the image in the center show a few examples of what acceptable knee angles can look like. The angle of the hock, or the main joint of the hind leg, should be set squarely under the hip and be relatively straight in its structure. Much like with the knee, research has shown that at 100 days of age, selecting for gilts with a higher angle to the hock joint can improve structural soundness and longevity over time. It is important to note that while this is a general rule, you want to be cautious not to select gilts that have joint angles that are so large that they then become structurally unsound. The next few slides will go into what abnormalities to avoid when selecting for these two joints specifically. The image on the right provides a good reference for what a good hock angle would look like. Now that we have gone through the three major joints and what their correct conformation looks like, we can take a deeper dive into what some common abnormalities can look like in both the front and hind legs, focusing on the knee and the hock joints. Beginning with the front legs, we will look at one of the most commonly seen abnormalities, which is buck-kneed. Buck-kneed is when the knees are bent inward at an angle that is too low. Gilts that are buck-kneed will often walk on their toes, can appear to be pigeon-toed, and can have difficulty walking. This trait is highly undesirable, and you should avoid selecting gilts with this abnormality. Much like with the front legs, the back legs can also be prone to structural abnormalities. One of the most common issues in a gilt is a gilt that is post-legged. This condition occurs when the legs are too straight from the hip to the pastern. This happens when the hock angle is too large. This often causes difficulty walking and can create a very stiff moving gait, leading to lameness and joint pain. Another common hind leg conformation issue is a gilt that is sickle hocked. This occurs when the hock angle is too small. In this case, the hind legs are typically drawn up underneath the body, causing gilts to sit in what is often called a dog-like position. This abnormality is typically rather severe and can lead to a vast number of issues, from lameness, joint pain, rapid joint breakdown, and many gilts with this condition will develop splay-footedness shortly after entering the breeding herd. Now that we have gone through the correct and incorrect structure of the main joints of the feet and legs, we will now go through the proper leg alignment in a replacement gilt. A gilt should ideally have her legs set parallel to each other. The toes should not be turned in or tilted to the inside, or turned out or tilted to the outside. The front and hind legs should also be aligned with each other. The legs should be slightly wide set to allow the rib cage to display a similar wide set appearance that allows for plenty of space in the body cavity. This allows for optimal capacity and increased amount of room in the abdomen during pregnancy. Lastly, how does all of this correlate to a producer's perspective? As a producer, it can be difficult to identify some of these traits and make selections from a large group of potential replacement gilts. Other times, there may be a limited number of replacement gilts for a producer to choose from. Overall, selecting those animals that follow as closely as possible to the recommendations for correct structure, as discussed in this presentation, can help you select animals that will be longer lived and more profitable in your breeding herd. It is important to remember that body structure and conformation are highly heritable traits, so selecting for superior animals can lead to the continued production of superiorly conformed replacement animals. One simple method that can be used to assist producers when selecting for replacement gilts is to use a cheat sheet or conformation chart showing different abnormalities in the feet and legs, as well as the ideals, so that you can compare your live animals to the chart to help you more easily identify those animals that would make excellent replacement gilts. Here are the resources and sites that were used in the creation of this project and where you can find more information regarding selecting for replacement gilts. This presentation was created as part of the Improving Pig Livability Grant supported by the National Pork Board and the FFAR. For more resources like this, go to piglivability.org.